It was one of those slow, quiet Saturday afternoons where even the air feels still. I had music playing softly in the background, the kind you don't really listen to, just let fill the silence. I was scrubbing the bathroom sink, lost in thought, when something in the trash bin caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just a bit of crumpled paper. But no, it was a pregnancy test. My breath hitched, and not just any test, a positive one. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I froze, staring at that little piece of plastic like it might explain itself if I looked long enough. But the truth was instant and undeniable. I wasn't pregnant. I knew my body, my cycle. That test didn't belong to me, which left one other possibility, and one other person in this house. Adam. I stood there, the sharp smell of cleaning spray still lingering, my hands damp, the world tilting just slightly. My mind started flipping through memories like pages in a book. Adam coming home late, the way he guarded his phone lately. Those vague stories about work that didn't quite add up. Maybe I'd been ignoring signs without even realizing it. But standing over that trash bin, I knew something was about to change, and not in a way I could ever prepare for. I reached down and picked it up, holding it between my fingertips like it was radioactive. The weight of it was nothing, but the meaning behind it, that was crushing. My first instinct was to confront Adam right then and there, but something inside me told me to wait. I needed to think. I needed to be sure. And more than anything, I needed to know the full story before I said a single word. I glanced around the bathroom, half expecting to find some kind of clue. Maybe the box it came in, a receipt, anything. But the cabinet under the sink was spotless, almost too spotless, as if someone had made sure to leave no trace. The silence in the house suddenly felt heavy, pressing down on me, making the walls feel closer than they were. I set the test back in the bin, careful to bury it under tissues, like hiding it could somehow slow down the avalanche that was coming. As I walked out, my heart was still racing. I went through the motions of the rest of my day, folding laundry, answering a few texts, even smiling when Adam called to say he'd be home late because of work. But underneath, a new awareness had settled in, something cold and sharp. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew this. Whatever was happening, I wasn't going to let him see me coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen, the occasional creak of the house settling. Adam's side of the bed stayed empty until well past midnight, and when he finally slipped under the covers, he smelled faintly of cologne, not the one I bought him last Christmas. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing slow, pretending to be asleep, even as my mind ran wild. Memories started connecting in ways they never had before. The sudden late nights at the office, the text messages he'd tilt his phone away to hide, the way he'd been more distracted, less present. I had brushed it all off, told myself it was stress, work, life. But now the pieces were snapping together into a picture I didn't want to see. And that pregnancy test? It was the final piece, proof that something was happening behind my back. I knew in that moment I wasn't going to confront him yet. No. That would be too easy for him. He'd deny, twist things, make me doubt myself. Instead, I would watch, listen, and wait. Because deep down, I had a feeling the truth was going to reveal itself soon. And when it did, I'd be ready to make sure he regretted every single lie. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calmness, the kind that comes after a storm. Except this one was still brewing, just invisible to everyone but me. While Adam showered, I slipped into the bathroom cabinet again, checking every shelf, every drawer. No packaging, no receipt. Not a single sign that test had ever existed. It was almost impressive how thorough he'd been, but it only made me more certain he was hiding something worth protecting. Over coffee, I watched him. The way he scrolled through his phone with his thumb moving a little too quickly. The way he kept the screen tilted away from me. When I asked if he was still swamped at work, he didn't even look up. Just nodded, said, "Yeah, deadlines," and sipped his coffee like it was the most natural thing in the world. But I could hear the faint tremor in his voice, see the way his jaw tensed when I lingered on the topic. I decided right then to play along. let him think I was still the oblivious, trusting wife he thought he'd married. The truth was, I was already laying the groundwork, paying closer attention to his schedule, noting the names that popped up on his phone, mentally marking the nights he came home later than usual. If there was a trail to follow, I was going to find it, and I wouldn't need him to hand me the map. Days passed, and I slipped into the role so easily it almost scared me. The smiling wife, asking about his day, laughing at his dry jokes, nodding when he claimed another late night was unavoidable. But behind that mask, I was collecting information like a detective: times, dates, the smallest inconsistencies in his stories. I started to notice patterns. Tuesday nights, he always worked late. Friday afternoons, his texts became shorter, less responsive. One evening, when he left his phone unattended on the counter, I caught a glimpse of a name I didn't recognize flashing on the screen. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to keep walking, not to touch it. I knew that if I gave in too soon, I'd risk scaring him into covering his tracks even better. No, I needed him to feel safe, unguarded, convinced I had no idea. At night, lying in bed beside him, I'd study his breathing, the way he sometimes smiled faintly in his sleep. Was he dreaming of her? Of them? I didn't know. But I did know one thing. The woman holding that pregnancy test was still out there, and Adam's life with her was moving forward in ways he thought I'd never see coming. What he didn't realize was that I wasn't just watching. I was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One afternoon, while organizing the mail, I found a crumpled receipt tucked between some flyers. It wasn't for groceries or gas. It was from a cafe on the other side of town. The date and time matched one of his supposed late nights at work. My pulse quickened, but instead of confronting him, I slipped the receipt into a small box I kept hidden in my closet. It now sat alongside the pregnancy test, my growing collection of silent evidence. I began memorizing details, not just about him, but about myself in this new role. I noticed how easy it was to smile while secretly planning his undoing, how natural it felt to nod in agreement while already 3 steps ahead of him. Every polite "have a good day" as he left the house was really a challenge. Go ahead, dig yourself deeper. I'll be right here, waiting. And as I poured myself a glass of wine that night, I realized something. This wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. It was about timing, about letting him build the perfect lie, brick by brick, so that when it all came crashing down, there'd be nowhere for him to hide. The pieces were falling into place, and soon, I'd have more than enough to pull the trigger. A few days later, Adam left for what he called drinks with colleagues. The moment the door closed behind him, my gut told me this was it, the night I'd catch him in something he couldn't explain away. I grabbed my coat, my phone, and followed him at a safe distance, my heart thudding with a mix of dread and adrenaline. Streetlights flashed across my windshield as I trailed him across town, each turn tightening the knot in my stomach. He finally parked outside a small cafe, not the kind of place for a casual after-work drink. I stayed far enough back to watch him walk in, scanning the room until his eyes landed on her. She was younger, her hand resting protectively over her belly, and when Adam leaned down to kiss her cheek, something inside me went cold. This wasn't speculation anymore. This was confirmation. I pulled my phone from my pocket, zooming in through the window as they talked. His hand slid over hers, lingering on her stomach like it was the most natural thing in the world. My fingers trembled, but I kept recording. I needed to hear them, needed their words on top of the images. And when she laughed softly and said something I couldn't quite catch, I knew I had to get closer. Just close enough to hear the truth fall out of their mouths. I slipped out of my car, the cool evening air hitting my face, carrying with it the faint scent of coffee and warm pastries from the cafe. I positioned myself just outside the open window, where the hum of conversations blended with the low murmur of their voices. Then I heard it, clear enough to slice right through me. She was talking about baby names. He was joking about teaching our little one how to ride a bike. Our little one. My jaw tightened, but my hands stayed steady, holding the phone just right. Every word was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel the urge. Instead, there was this cold, steady clarity that settled over me, like a blanket made of steel. The woman across from him smiled, her fingers tracing lazy circles on her mug, and Adam, my Adam, looked at her like she was his entire world. I took photos, videos, enough to erase any doubt, to silence any excuse. Then I stepped back into the shadows, letting them finish their cozy little meeting, unaware they'd just handed me the ammunition I needed. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something they'd never see coming. I watched them part ways, her heading toward a small hatchback, him strolling back to his car with that easy, satisfied smile I used to think was for me. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as I followed him at a distance, my mind already running ahead, past tonight, past the lies, into the moment where I'd hand him his perfect little life, shattered into pieces. When we pulled into our driveway, I made sure to arrive a few minutes later, giving him time to settle in. Inside, he greeted me like nothing had happened, tossing his jacket on the couch and asking if I'd eaten. I played along, pouring myself a glass of water, nodding as if my world hadn't just tilted completely off its axis. If he noticed my stillness, he didn't say a word. That night, as he slept beside me, I scrolled through the photos and videos on my phone. Each image felt like a weapon, each recording like a blade. The proof was undeniable. And now, all I needed was the perfect stage to make sure his betrayal had the audience it deserved. I wasn't going to just leave him. I was going to dismantle him in front of everyone who ever thought he was a good man. The idea came to me while I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, Adam's steady breathing beside me. Confronting him in private would only give him space to twist the story, to make himself the victim. No, I wanted the truth to land like a punch he'd never recover from, right in front of the people whose opinions he valued most. Friends, family, the ones who'd believed in our marriage. Over the next few days, I began crafting the scene like a director setting up the final act of a play. I suggested to Adam that we should host a special announcement dinner. His eyes lit up immediately, probably thinking I was planning something sentimental or romantic. He had no idea that the announcement would be his own undoing. I spent hours on the details, the guest list, the food, the seating arrangement. I wanted every chair filled, every face turned toward him when the moment came. And in the center of it all, I had the perfect gift prepared, a neatly wrapped box holding the pregnancy test and the photos I'd taken. It would be impossible for him to talk his way out of what was inside. The night of the dinner, the house was warm with the hum of conversation and the clink of glasses. Adam was in his element, smiling, greeting everyone like the charming host he believed himself to be. He had no idea that every laugh, every toast, was leading him closer to the moment I'd planned with surgical precision. I floated through the room, topping off drinks, making sure everyone was comfortable, my face the picture of a devoted wife. I could feel the small, square box in my bag like a live wire. Every time my fingers brushed against it, my pulse quickened. Guests asked if the announcement was about us, a new house, maybe a long-awaited vacation. I just smiled and told them they'd find out soon enough. Adam beamed at my side, squeezing my hand, completely oblivious to the storm about to break over his head. When the plates were cleared and the wine poured for one final toast, I rose from my seat. My voice was steady, calm. I wanted everyone here tonight, I began, because this is something I think we should all celebrate together. Adam turned toward me, curiosity flickering in his eyes. I reached into my bag and pulled out the box, placing it in front of him with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Adam glanced down at the box, his brows knitting in confusion. "What's this?" he asked, a little laugh in his voice, the kind you use when you're trying to mask uncertainty. "Open it," I said softly, but my tone carried a weight that made the room go still. All eyes were on him as he tugged at the ribbon and lifted the lid. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then I saw it, the flicker of recognition, the draining of color from his face. He stared at the pregnancy test, at the glossy photos of him with her, his hand on her belly. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until I broke it. "I thought it was only fair," I said, my voice steady. that everyone be here when you shared your big news." Gasps rippled around the table. His mother's hand flew to her mouth, his father's eyes narrowed, friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Adam opened his mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to beg, but I wasn't going to let him get there. I wanted this moment seared into every face in the room, because what came next would make sure they never forgot it. I let the silence hang for just a moment longer, watching him squirm under the weight of every pair of eyes in the room. Then I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm, almost gentle. "Congratulations, Adam," I said. "You're going to be a father, just not to my child." A stunned murmur moved through the table like a wave, chairs creaking as people shifted uncomfortably. Adam's lips parted, searching for words that wouldn't come. "It's not," he began, but I held up my hand, cutting him off. "No, you don't get to rewrite this." My tone was firm, final. I reached into my bag one last time and pulled out a manila envelope, sliding it across the table toward him. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed. "I think you'll find everything in order." His mother's face crumpled in shame, his father's jaw tightened, and his so-called friends avoided his gaze entirely. Adam's world was collapsing in real time, and I didn't even need to raise my voice. I stood, smoothed my dress, and looked around the table, not at him, but at everyone else. "Thank you for coming," I said simply. And then I turned, walking toward the door without looking back. The air outside felt different, crisp, sharp, alive against my skin. I could still hear the muffled chaos from the dining room behind me, his mother asking questions he couldn't answer, his father's low, angry voice, chairs scraping against the floor. I didn't need to stay to hear the rest. The scene would play out exactly as I'd intended, with Adam standing in the center, exposed and utterly alone. I walked to my car slowly, each step deliberate, the heels of my shoes clicking against the driveway like a countdown to freedom. My hand didn't shake when I unlocked the door, didn't falter when I slid into the driver's seat. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself, not the woman who'd scrubbed the bathroom sink weeks ago, clueless to what was hiding in her trash, but someone sharper, stronger, unafraid. As I started the engine, the headlights illuminated the front of the house. For just a second, Adam appeared in the doorway, his face pale, eyes wide, as if he still thought he could call me back. But I didn't slow. I didn't wave. I didn't even blink. I shifted into gear and pulled away, letting the night swallow the life I was leaving behind. The city lights blurred past as I drove, my grip loosening on the wheel with every mile I put between us. There was no rush, no frantic escape, just a steady, deliberate departure from a life that no longer had anything to offer me. The envelope had been the period at the end of a long, ugly sentence, and now I was free to start a new paragraph, one entirely of my own making. I thought about the box tucked safely away at home, the one holding the pregnancy test and the photos. I didn't need them anymore. Their purpose had been served, but part of me wanted to keep them. Not as a reminder of betrayal, but as proof of what I'd survived. They were trophies in a way, of a war I'd fought quietly and won on my own terms. As I merged onto the open road, I rolled down the window, letting the cool night air rush in. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. Not happy, not yet, but unburdened. The kind of lightness that comes when you've closed a chapter with no intention of reopening it. Adam's story was over for me. Mine was just beginning.